Hi, everybody. Dave Walker again with the B to SMB Institute, and another in our series of trying to bring to bring our community really an understanding of players out there who are really engaged every single day in the advocacy for small business. People who are frankly just as passionate, if not more so, as we are about small businesses, but are maybe doing it from a different angle. So I'm pleased to introduce both the man and the organization, Derek Peebles, who is the executive director of Amoeba, the American Independent Business Alliance. I think I got that right. Did I get that right, Derek?
That's correct.
That's correct. So Derek Peebles, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Dave.
I really appreciate
It's
you
glad to
being
be
here.
here. Yes,
So
yes.
why don't you give us a quick 411 on you and on what Amoeba is and does, maybe a little bit of history, and then we'll kind of dive into the specifics of what your organization does.
Sure. So I'm located in Cincinnati, Ohio, and that's where I've done a lot of my work in my career around economic development, community development, and even spent a few years in development. So really got to get a good sense of what it takes for a local economy and for a neighborhood to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
So I joined Amoeba. I joined Amoeba's board, I'd say 4 years ago now, and started with my first real project with Amoeba was the anti bigotry campaign that
Okay.
we were able to get funded. I led that campaign, and it was basically a campaign for local business owners to leverage as a response to a lot of the rhetoric that we were seeing, especially in the Northwest region post the 2016 election. And so that was kind of what we were responding to. Years later, Amoeba was founded in 2001 by our
Mhm.
co-founders who decided that they wanted to semi-retire, but really just kind of step back from the role of co-directors. And so in July of 2019, I took over as executive director. The co-directors had been at it for 20 years. Amoeba was
Wow.
founded in
Wow.
2001, so it was the right time, and I stepped into the role. Amoeba was in heavy transition at
Hmm.
the time, and then COVID hit, and then we had to transition again. And but we've had some really great success, and we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot because our businesses have been suffering.
Well, so tell us a little bit about what Amoeba exactly does. And you said it was
Mhm.
in transition. Maybe give us a sense of what it was before and what it is now become and becoming.
Sure. So, yes, Amoeba was founded in 2001 to really build a movement that supported the development of locally owned independent businesses.
Hmm.
That's what Amoeba's been doing over the past 19, 20 years. And so, to be more specific, we've helped form or grow more than 60 independent business alliances that are geographically dispersed around the country.
Hmm.
And so that's about 24 states and represent about 40,000 local independent businesses. And
Wow.
we're all united across the
Hmm.
country. And we're across the spectrum as far as industry, as far as, you know, multiple areas, but we are united in supporting and protecting local economies. And so we do a lot of advocacy work, highlighting the negative impacts of monopolies. And, we've run a lot of campaigns around that over the years. But ultimately, just to, people may think of us as a chamber of commerce. And we're really the countervailing force to a chamber of commerce, if that makes sense. We focus, and our definition of locally owned is if you're 50% more um, owned locally, and that you're a non-franchise.
Hmm.
And so those are the specific businesses that we support.
Hmm.
Um, to simplify it, I would say that we've primarily have helped become, terms such as buy local, local first. These
Hmm.
terms we've really helped become prevalent across the United States.
Okay.
That's a lot of marketing campaign, shop indie local campaign. And so helping businesses in our alliances promote local.
Hmm.
And that comes with data as well, such as the multiplier effect, and different organizations still reference us by. So, we understand and what we support is a circular economy. And what that means is an economy where the flow of the dollar circulates locally. And not that I'm anti big business, but we know that a lot of resources is spent to recruit multinational employers to a community, to a city, with the
Hmm.
incentives of creating jobs. But we know that those jobs really don't keep the dollars flowing. Companies like Amazon don't pay local taxes.
Right.
So we really promote and highlight the impacts from a consumer perspective, of what it really takes and what it really does, and the impact of spending your dollar locally.
That's terrific. And I am aware of your campaigns, and always like to wonder, where did those come from, especially buy local. And it's good to know that it came from you guys. So 2020, obviously a year that rocked us. And I want to kind of talk about the two dimensions of, or the two major crises that hit this year, and what the response and the role was of Amoeba. The first one, of course, is the pandemic. How did you guys step up to assist your 40,000 independent businesses in responding to the pandemic?
Sure. So it was tough for everyone.
Yeah, I
And
can
not
imagine.
only the businesses, but the IBAs were really suffering at that point.
Hmm.
And we quickly stepped in and organized. And ultimately, that developed into a campaign that was called Save Our Economy Now.
Hmm.
And we had partnered with the American Sustainable Business Council on this campaign to basically educate business owners on how to get the best effective use of the stimulus package and the PPP.
Hmm.
So that was really the focus of our response for COVID, was helping businesses sign up for PPP. We
Hmm.
were holding a lot of virtual calls with community bankers and really just kind of getting the information out there.
Hmm.
And what that really involved, Dave, was translating the PPP in
Hmm.
the terms that our local business owners really understood.
Hmm.
I would say the biggest thing that we learned from COVID and from PPP is that our business owners got more help, got more resources out of the PPP.
Hmm.
The ones who were located in geographic areas where community banks were more prevalent.
Hmm.
The business owners that were primarily in urban areas got less help out of PPP
Hmm.
in geographic areas that were predominantly commercial banking,
Right.
and the big banks. And if you think about it, we have four major banks that are too big to fail.
Right.
And so if you were located in a geographic area where you didn't already have a banking relationship
Hmm.
with your commercial bank, you were really in hot water,
Right.
and you didn't get a whole
Frankly, in
lot
a
of
lot
help.
of cases, even if you did have that relationship, it didn't
Right,
help you at all.
right.
So,
And then at that point, community banks were also underwater as well, because, obviously they were processing more applications within a week's time that they had did in a 15-year period.
right.
So it
Right.
was just on multiple ends. It was really kind of chaotic. I'll
Hmm.
be honest about that. But as time went on, we were able to decipher and translate kind of what was going on, and how to help our business owners really get the effective use of it. A lot of them succeeded, and then a lot of them didn't, especially our Black and brown businesses.
Well, that comes a good segue to the other major crisis of this year, revolved around social justice. And I'm just curious, what was Amoeba's response to that? Because I'm sure that a lot of the communities that you serve
Mhm.
were impacted greatly by everything from protests to change needed. What was Amoeba's role there?
Sure, and we have alliances in Louisville, Kentucky, and in the Twin Cities area in
Hmm.
Minnesota, where a lot of this racial unrest really kind of started breaking out,
Hmm.
especially with George Floyd. I would say for us, we didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to respond,
Hmm.
and so ultimately, what we did among our board of directors is that we 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 actually, hired help to come in and facilitate conversations around what it meant for us
Hmm.
to place equity at the center of our work as we
Hmm.
continue to grow the local economy movement.
Hmm.
That was the question we were trying to answer for ourselves. And through this process, we learned that we had a lot of work to do. I mean,
Hmm.
that's the best way to say it. I would say out of 60 of our IBAs, they're predominantly white
Hmm.
led organizations,
Hmm.
and it was very challenging. It was
Hmm.
very challenging. It was challenging for me as a
Hmm.
black leader to
Hmm.
discern what role I had to play in this. And
Hmm.
so I think when the George Floyd incident happened, what was weird for me, Dave, is that I saw all of these organizations, all these businesses coming out with rapid responses about how they support Black people.
Right.
And I felt weird about that. And having some time to reflect on it, I felt that our organization had to be honest about what we have done and the lack thereof around racial
Hmm.
equity
Hmm.
before we put out a statement, because I felt like people in organizations and businesses, a
Hmm.
lot of them, especially your big corporations, were putting out rapid messages, and it kind of felt to me like it was kind of
Right. Right.
checking off a list. It's like, okay,
Or more bluntly, this will shut them up.
yes,
That's the way I
exactly.
reacted. Was we're making a statement so that nobody can challenge us.
Exactly,
Um,
and I think there's more to that though.
right.
Making a statement is making a statement, but I think for us, we had to do a deeper dive into that. And
Hmm.
so the result of these conversations, we learned as an organization that we were not where we thought we were,
Hmm.
as far as focusing on the importance of racial equity as far as
Hmm.
our work is concerned. And we eventually put steps together that would get us to that point. But Amoeba is a network. We
Hmm.
and so we what we did and how we responded was pulling together our networks and then our diverse business networks.
Hmm.
And we hosted a virtual conference over a 2-day period just a couple of weeks ago.
Really? How did that
Yeah.
go?
And it went great. It's definitely exceeded expectations. And the
It's
point
terrific.
of this conference was really to drive the connection more than it was about the content, although the content was very important. And so we were able, which is lucky for us, and I hate to say anything good comes out of this pandemic, but speakers and people that are very important to this movement were also available.
Hmm.
And that's something that's really kind of, for the IBA perspective, has really helped and has really worked, is the fact that people are more available to do virtual instead of
Right.
flying out,
Yep.
spending thousands of dollars and
Right.
lodging them and feeding them to do a 15 to 20-minute speech. And so we were able to really kind of get a lot of the really important people of our movement to come and speak. And then we were breaking out in small group sessions, really around this topic of what does it mean to have an equitable local economy movement. It went great. The first day was really focused on the equity piece. The second
Hmm.
day was focused more on how we strengthen our businesses and our local economies during COVID. Post COVID,
Hmm.
was a lot of what we had talked about, is what happens after all of this. So
Coming out of those 2 days, what are maybe the top two or three things that you would like our audience of large enterprises that serve small business that you would like to represent? You'd like them to know about
mhm.
as the opinions or the positions of your independent business alliance.
Sure. We done a real deep dive on the first day of our conference and the story of the rise and fall of Black Wall Street.
Hmm.
And that refers back to the Tulsa riots of
Yeah. Hmm.
1921. And that story really is important to the fact that it was a time where Black business owners, because of segregation, were really doing well. And the thing that we really highlighted out of there was how economy can survive when
Hmm.
the dollars are spent locally, when you're supporting your
Hmm.
local people. And when you flip to today, the message that we really kind of walked away with is that if we don't focus on racial equity in the local economy, but also in our economy as a whole, we
Hmm.
stand to lose more
Hmm.
by if we just ignore it and act like it's just not a problem.
Right.
And I think that was really important, and I think that's really kind of what we would want the whole country and the whole world to know from a local business perspective, is that there is more of a cost to us as Americans, as a democracy, if we don't focus on this.
Hmm.
And when you look at the looting and the rioting and the level of small businesses that were destroyed through this period of racial unrest,
Hmm.
we had to think about that and change the conversation around that. Is that um, although you have protesters,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of us were under this perspective, and I think in the media kind of sheds light on this too, is that they're one and the same.
Hmm.
And we understand and we support our small business owners, and we ache for them, for the ones that have lost their
Hmm.
businesses and have not been able to start over. But
Hmm.
really, the message is that this is the cost of what happens when we don't focus on how racism not only has an impact to our social and our democracy,
Hmm.
but it has a huge impact to our economy.
Hmm.
And I think it costs less to focus on the issue.
Hmm.
um, let's stop redlining our businesses and
Right.
our neighborhoods.
Right.
This involves a lot of our financial system. Our economy has been built and designed for uh, the people at the top. And when you
Right.
think about it,
For the
a lot of
haves.
us,
Hmm.
yeah, a lot of us at the bottom, the middle class has been forgotten about.
Right.
And so the other message I would want people to know is that Black and brown businesses contribute billions of dollars to the economy.
Hmm.
And so if we're able to focus on equity,
Hmm.
it doesn't just benefit one uh, group, one
Hmm.
ethnic group of our country. It benefits all of us.
Right. Because dollars do flow,
Hmm.
flow between, as the expression goes, dollars don't recognize color,
Hmm. Right.
and it's a very important principle. So so are the is the vision, I mean, here you are, you're kind of charged with, frankly, leading the organization through what seems to be an ever evolving series of crises, and that requires kind of the crisis management that you've been doing this year. But through that, is it starting to become clear what the vision of going forward looks like? Some of the things that you're going to really be focused on as you get into 2021 and beyond?
Yes, I think, looking at a very high level, we do need to continue this fight on holding our monopolies accountable. And so a lot of advocacy on fair markets
Hmm.
is really kind of where we're headed. And obviously, we appreciate the fact that there's such a hyper awareness about local business now,
Hmm.
but our policies don't reflect sustainability in the future if something like this is to happen again.
Hmm.
And so that also is going to require us kind of reframing our economic development practices as well.
Right.
I don't feel that we need to and one, I think there also needs to be an education about this. We spend a lot of our tax dollars recruiting multinational employers that
Right.
create jobs, but those jobs don't create circular economies. And
And
there
and
needs
I
to,
I I would probably argue that a lot of them create a headline about jobs because they all quote come at once, which by the way
exactly.
they really don't. But when Chicago was fighting for its share of the Amazon headquarter thing, they were talking about, oh, we're going to do 20,000, we're going to have 20,000 new jobs in Chicago, and our local advocacy group, the Small Business Advocacy Council of Illinois, argued back and said, well, wait a minute, look, in a month's time, small businesses in the Chicago area create anywhere between 6 and 10,000 jobs per
Mhm.
month. So a focus on them is going to be a heck of a lot more productive than a focus on one who pays no taxes. You're absolutely right. And who actually draws away taxes, gets all
Right.
sorts of different abatements and all sorts of different bonds and funds to help them build their infrastructure. It really is kind of criminal how that happens.
And I think there needs to be more of a voice around that.
Hmm.
And we are actually thinking about running a campaign about that, but it's also kind of not. There needs to be more of a balance
Hmm.
because we're not against big business,
Right.
and of course, that creates economic value too. But to your point, more of the focus needs to be around business retention and local business expansion because these are the processes that really don't get enough resources.
Hmm.
And when I was in economic development, there was two primary functions that our organization focused on, and that was attraction.
Hmm.
And we held the 2015 MLB All-Star Game here in
Hmm.
Cincinnati. If you're a baseball fan, those All-Star games, MLB, NBA, NFL, those All-Star games are nothing but economic development events, just
Right.
like the Olympics. And think about the Olympics,
Yep.
how there's so much
Huge.
money and so many dollars put into creating these Olympic villages where there's no sustainability plan for what happens after that 2-week event.
Hmm.
That also happens on a local level when you're looking at our economic development practices and the incentives, the tax incentives, the
Hmm.
abatements that these large companies get that really pull those dollars out of these communities.
Hmm. So, you're talking to an audience of professionals, leaders who work for very large enterprises in most cases, but who all are serving small business customers, many times at
Right.
a national, if not global scale. What can they do to help you?
That's really a good question. I think, the best help for the local economy movement is that to encourage their suppliers to do local. I mean, there's different ways that we can operate
Hmm.
with large corporations that benefit local economies. I
Hmm.
think that happens in the supply chain.
Hmm.
I think that happens in fair markets where these large corporations are mindful
Hmm.
of pricing
Hmm.
challenges,
Hmm.
and these are a lot of antitrust
Right.
violations that we see. So one of I mean,
Hmm.
especially on a policy level, large corporations can help us with the enforcement of antitrust.
Hmm. Can they help you on the in these local campaigns? Just to clarify, you're a nonprofit, right?
Right.
And so you really kind of live on grants and on really the donations of community. Or have you ever received grants from some of these large players in the business to small business space?
We have in the past, yes, and definitely when it comes to our Shop Indie Local campaigns, we have done work in the past with American Express,
Hmm.
especially around Shop Small Saturday, and so those campaigns we have
Hmm.
worked with large corporations on, but we definitely welcome and we can receive the most help and sponsorship when it comes to these campaigns
Okay.
on really on the consumer side.
Hmm.
is really encouraging consumers to really spend their dollars locally, especially during this holiday season.
Hmm.
And whether it involves buying gift cards and things like that, we could really use the help of large corporations to, sponsor and get that word out.
Well, I hope it's a great call to action. I'll share your contact information and the Amoeba website, of course, with all of our audience and all of our members. But I sincerely appreciate you kind of telling the story and giving it kind of a richer dimension. You're doing incredible work, appreciated work. I think that I'm glad that we're all as a community here at in B to SMB getting to know advocacy and support organizations like yourself, because frankly this year forced all of us to have to think about it for the first time, because maybe we hadn't been paying as close attention as we should to the organizations that assist small businesses, but I think now we are.
And I hate to say it again, maybe it takes a pandemic for us to realize how important local economies and small businesses are. And if anything, I think that's done that, and that's been the most helpful. A lot of nonprofits, a lot of organizations that folded and have been, really challenged through COVID. We've actually done a lot better as far as membership, and the reasons is because we provide good information and actions that people can take. And we do a lot of advocacy work, having people sign on.
Mhm.
And so, having corporations support us also on a federal and a state and local level, as
Mhm.
far as the government is concerned, is very helpful as well.
Terrific stuff, Derek. I appreciate you taking the time to tell us the Amoeba story, and look forward to working with you and having you be part of our community in the future. Thanks a
Yes, and
lot.
I'm looking forward to the panel on Tuesday nights. I really thank you.
Yeah, we're doing a panel on. You're joining a panel to really talk about diversity, and your perspective is going to be, I think, invaluable amongst coming at it from a number of different angles that really, kind of frankly, allows us to all confront the issues of equity and justice, and do it in such a way that really, actually, hopefully, will create meaningful action. So,
Great.
thanks for doing that. I appreciate it.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right, all right, ma'am. Thanks a lot for doing this. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.